All right, let's get right into it. After what felt like a very long and very noticeable silence, OnPassive CEO Ash Mafera has finally released a special message. So today we're going to break down the first part of this big update, and let me tell you, it really sets the stage for a much, much bigger story. Right out of the gate, the message is clear. The CEO says this isn't about pointing fingers or placing blame. Instead, it's about truth, it's about accountability, and it's about trying to restore trust by just being clear. I mean, that's a pretty powerful way to kick things off, right? It's basically a signal that the time for ambiguity is over. Which, of course, brings us to the question that's been on everybody's mind. Why now? After months and months of waiting, what makes this the right moment to finally share the inside story? Well, according to the CEO, the timing was completely deliberate. And that leads us directly into the first major pillar of this whole update. So first up is the justification for that silence. The company is framing it not as neglect, but as a necessary strategic pause. A time for preparation, they say, not avoidance. And this is a really critical distinction they're making. The message is, hey, we weren't hiding. The idea is that they were actively working behind the scenes, trying to get their arms around a very complex situation before they went public with anything. But, what exactly were they doing during that time? Well, they list several reasons for the pause. Things like letting the full picture develop, verifying all the facts, and handling some sensitive matters responsibly. But the real headline here, the one that probably jumps out at you at the bottom, is the need to navigate serious regulatory challenges. And that includes an SEC case. Wow. That tells you right there that this wasn't just internal drama. The company was facing some very significant external pressure. This quote really tries to paint a picture of the mindset during that period. According to the CEO, the choice wasn't about a quick fix to protect the bottom line. It was about preserving the company's core mission and its community, even if it meant having to start all over again. So, the narrative they're building here is one of principles over profit. Okay, so with the why now part established, the message shifts to the how. To really understand what went wrong, we first have to look at the operational structure that was in place. And a key strategic decision had been made to centralize all of the company's global financial operations in Dubai. And here's what that chain of command looked like. You had the CFO, Michael Thomas Curran, who had authority over all financial operations. Then the COO, Mohammed Kamal, handled all the nuts and bolts, payment processors, merchant accounts, banking. So what that means is that the entire financial engine of OnPassive was being run out of Dubai by these two individuals. And this is where we get to the third and maybe the most crucial part of this update. We're talking about a fundamental tension that was literally built right into the company's structure, a clear division between who owned the company and who controlled its money. This chart really lays it out in black and white. On one side, you have Ash Mufara and his wife, who held sole legal ownership of OnPassive, period. But on the other side, you had the day-to-day operational control over all the finances, and that rested entirely with the leadership team in Dubai. Now, it's really important to understand the original intent here. This was never meant to be a transfer of ownership. The power that was given to the Dubai team was supposed to be purely functional, just a way to streamline global operations. But in business, this kind of setup is like walking a tightrope. Separating legal ownership from total financial control can make things really efficient, but it also creates an enormous risk if that trust ever breaks down. And right here, this is the pivot point of the entire message. This one sentence acknowledges that a structure that seemed totally logical and sound on paper actually contained a catastrophic flaw. It gives you a real sense of foreboding, and it signals that the seemingly practical arrangement is exactly where the real trouble is about to begin. And that brings us to the end of part one, which does a perfect job of setting the stage for the crisis itself. But ironically, the problem didn't start with a failure. It started with a massive success. The catalyst for everything that was about to happen was this one milestone event, the launch of the company's first major paid product. This should have been a moment for celebration, a validation of years and years of hard work. But it wasn't. As the CEO states, the overwhelming success of this launch was the very thing that triggered a deep and serious problem inside the company. What was supposed to be a victory lap actually became the first step toward a crisis. And that leaves us with a really fascinating and pretty troubling question, doesn't it? How can a company's greatest triumph become the seed of its biggest challenge?
That is the story that we are promised in the next installment. Thanks for joining us.